But Ali, you mentioned that these people, he and his followers were pro blasphemy laws. That's kind of a understatement. It's like, um, you guys know, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but these people wanted the. When we say pro blasphemy laws, we're talking death penalty here, right? Right.
Death penalty is also a understatement. The immediate lynching and death, the gunning down of anyone who's accused of blasphemy. So they wouldn't advocate for a trial or a judge, jury, it's straight to the executioner without the judge. And
vigilante justice. Like
in the case of Asia Bibi, for example, Asia Bibi had her day in court, and it was a court under the blasphemy laws that found her innocent. So if you're pro-blasphemy law, you'd say, well, blasphemy law has done its job and the law has found her innocent. But what they wanted was to trump the blasphemy law and make it an immediate case of mob justice by the street.
So is it safe to say that given how popular this guy was, and all his followers, would it be safe to say that all these followers also would be pro the murder of the three of us here?
Oh, immediately. Yes, of course. In fact, it's a mini miracle that all three of us have survived since our last podcast.
And he's dead.
Yeah. We're still alive.
Well, he mentioned you by name, Sean. Like, he's saw a lecture of him talking about you. And he was talking about you, like, I'm not going to repeat what he said about your father. And then, well, father was like this, the son is like this too. And he targeted you by name.
Yes, I'm one of the people he targeted. One of the many people he targeted because I've taken a stand for victims of the blasphemy law, people who've suffered, people who've been to jail, people who've been and remain in jail without trial, such as Asia Bibi, such as Junaid Hafiz. I've taken a stand for them, and I publicly opposed the blasphemy law. And Christmas 2016, I gave a Christmas message and asked for a prayer for these people. And based on that, he gave a fatwa against me, a fatwa and calling for my death, my immediate murder. These fatwas don't say arrest him and try him under the blasphemy law. They say, no, we have found him guilty and please murder him. And anyone who murders him will get a ticket to heaven. Now, the thing is that, you see, the issue of blasphemy is political dynamite in Pakistan. It rouses such fierce passions that it calls a mob immediately to take someone's life. And it's something that can destroy your political opponents immediately if you so much as accuse them of blasphemy. So it's raw, unchecked power. And we know from human psychology that where there is raw and unchecked power, it will be abused. It won't be used in a benign way. Now the whole movement of Khadim Rizvi, Mumtaz Qadri, the Tehreek Labbaik, the Sunni Tehreek, has been a movement which has successfully capitalized on this political dynamite and forged a political movement out of it. And that, by the way, is the Tehreek Labbaik, which is his party. It's one defining feature from other parties, is their passion to kill in the name of blasphemy. In fact, Ashike Rasul, which is people who follow them, are called lovers of the Prophet. And the moment, like your initiation rites into the Ashike Rasul, are not, I love the Prophet, therefore I pledge to keep the streets clean. I love the Prophet, therefore I pledge for economic growth and improvement in schools and well-being. No. It's always, I love the Prophet, therefore I will murder so and so and so. So it's a death cult.
I mean, it's on brand though when it comes to the Prophet.
Sorry, say that again.
I mean, it's pretty on brand though. Like when you say I love the Prophet, therefore, I mean, it doesn't cleaning the streets is not the first thing that would come to my mind either. So it's pretty
No.
on brand. Okay.
No, but you'd think that a great religious leader, religion of peace, I love my prophet means, oh, so therefore I'm a better person in this way. No, it's I love my prophet, so I will murder him or I'll murder her. So that's the initiation into the Ashke Rasul, and that's the branding that sets it apart.
What is? Go ahead. No, Armin, you go.
What percentage of? I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's no way to know. But what would you? Is there a way to know what portion of Pakistani population would see this guy as a hero, as a good man, as a role model?
You can never put a percentage on these things, because the cost, not only to your life, but the social penalty of opposing it is so high that you'll only hear the voices on one side. It's like a lot of postmodernist woke stuff also, that you think it's mainstream, you think it's the only view, because opposing it carries such a big social and possibly physical penalty,
right,
that it's amplified beyond its real support. But there's no way of actually knowing that.
But given the number of people that show up to support, the millions of people that show up to either celebrate him or mourn as death, I would assume that the actual supporters are I don't know how many times more than the number of people that actually show up in the street. And if you just judge by the number of people that come up in the streets, it's already pretty high. I don't know. So is that like?
Well, yes, that you're right. That is one gauge, but there's another gauge, which is election results. And they won. They bagged about, what was it? Remember, if I recall, 2 or 2.5 million votes, which is large for a party which is a year old, but it's a percentage or so of the grand vote. So if that is a measure, then they are not in a majority, but it's like those belief systems where there's a noisy minority, and the majority will tip their hat for fear of having their life destroyed.
So I think that's interesting, and it's also encouraging, because one of the things you do see is Imran Khan, who the Prime Minister of Pakistan, who Khadim Rizvi also wanted to kill, by the way. So he was sending out very sympathetic condolence messages, that this is a tragic loss, and I don't know what else he said in his tweets. And and that, I wonder about that gauge, because you're right about the noisy minority. Like I saw, in the U.S. elections, you're talking about the woke thing, and everybody thought everybody was going AOC, and then in the debates, even the sort of the moderate Democrats were scaling back a little bit, and later they realized, no, nobody wants this woke stuff, so they became bolder and bolder as the season went on, and it turned out that all of the rally attendance that, say, Bernie Sanders had, right, just did not translate into votes. It didn't. He got completely trounced. So it seems like there may be a similar kind of phenomenon there. In the elections, these sort of religious extremist parties, they never do well. They've never done well in Pakistan when the elections
never. And I'm saying that if you add them all up and put them all now, there are groups within groups and circles within concentric circles. But if you give them the ultimate concession and add them all up, which they never will in real life, even then, they don't make up. I don't know. I've heard different figures, but 10, some say 15% of the vote.
That's why they want mob justice. I think that's why they advocate for mob justice, for going around.
Well, mob justice is street power. It is raw power. No one will oppose you. They can threaten the chief of army staff and the prime minister, and no one will really have the guts to oppose them, because that is where their power comes from. So
okay,
and by the way, this I also want to say, it's not, the mob justice is not just used to threaten opponents. It's also used to shape the culture in their, to their liking. So that's why in Pakistan, and there's been a steady decline. You had New Year's parties when I was growing up. You don't have them anymore. You had Basant. You don't have that anymore. Any kind of festivities or music publicly sort of exists under the arts exist under a threat. Any kind of liberal expression is threatened. 2 years ago, what was it? An elite school in Karachi wanted to sing a John Lennon song to world peace, and they were threatened, and they didn't. So it's also cultural bullying that they do.